You're watching the number one podcast in the YouTube wrestling community, and I'm your host, John Paul Laek. This is Rope Break. How we doing, family? Tuesday morning, so you know what time it is. Monday Night Raw review. Want to thank each and every one of you guys for the continued growth and everything going on with the channel. It's all because of you guys, and we greatly appreciate it. One thing we don't appreciate is bad Monday Night Raws. It seems that's the trend lately. You know, for a little while, the show was doing all right. We said, okay, better than SmackDown, doing pretty good. You know, lately it's just been awful. And this is we're 1 week away from the go-home show to WrestleMania already. And, it doesn't feel special. It doesn't feel like any good WrestleMania build. This show did very little to excite us for WrestleMania, get us hyped up. So, let's get into it. Let's get through it because it was an awful 3 hours, but Rope Break will give you a great, review. And, this is where you come to find out what happened on Raw, not the USA. You don't watch that channel. You watch Rope Break. So let's get into it. Raw opened up. We see Drew McIntyre is making his way to the arena. He gets stopped. Hey, what do you think of the thing going on with Lashley and his challenge and, all that? He's like, if anybody believes Lashley's going to live up to his word, they're an idiot. And, or one, if anybody believes that, they're an idiot. And two, if you want to step up to me, you're going to get a Scottish ass kicking. So you see Drew's pissed. He's fired up. He makes his way into the arena. Speaking of pissed and fired up, then we go to the Hurt Business. They're in the ring. MVP says he has an official announcement. We're less than 2 weeks away from WrestleMania, and they want to reiterate their proposition. If anyone can take out Drew McIntyre before WrestleMania, they will get that opportunity. MVP says not to mistake this business deal as a weakness or fear. They merely feel McIntyre has had his chance. MVP opens the floor to anyone who wants to accept the offer right now, but nobody answers. MVP says he thought as much, but let's talk about the fact that Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander won't be ringside at WrestleMania. Lashley says they had the perfect opportunity to take Drew out, but they failed, and they lost both the Raw Tag Team titles to boot, and they're becoming an embarrassment. He can't count on them, and that's why he had to outsource. He worked too long and too hard to get where he is, and he refuses to associate with incompetence. MVP says Lashley's right and gives Shelton and Cedric the chance to speak. Neither of them are happy, and Shelton says if it wasn't for them, Lashley wouldn't even be WWE champ. MVP gets between them. Benjamin knocks him back. Lashley hits Cedric. Shelton throws Lashley, but, Lashley, he comes back, kind of, just takes the advantage over Shelton. And then Alexander's on the floor. Lashley prevents him from getting back in. He kicks Shelton out to the ring, and he grabs a microphone, and he says the Hurt Business is dead. So good opening segment there. Great fire from Shelton Benjamin. He gets, the intensity he had too when he was speaking was good. Like Juan and I say, everybody says how legit Shelton is, but at the end, he always looks bullshit. He always gets his ass beat. And we would see that later on tonight as well. So it's, it kind of sucks for Shelton, but, he did look good here. I don't agree with, destroying the Hurt Business already, but, WWE, nothing lasts forever, especially in WWE. This should be called the NFL, not for long, but, nothing lasts. So then we see Riddle. He's wheeling around backstage on his scooter, and he stopped for an interview, and he says he just wanted to talk to Sheamus. He doesn't know why he attacked him. Maybe he was having a tummy ache, and he's like, hey, anyway, he's pissed off. I don't like being pissed off. And he says that he's going to be opening a new bag of Doritos, and the first one that hits the floor, Riddle notices Titus O'Neil rolls up, talks to him, and he tells him that he should roast a pig at WrestleMania. And he said, no, I'm the co-host, not the roast. And he's like, oh, well, you and Hulk Hogan can both roast a pig. And, just like an awkward, just thing by Riddle. And again, it's going to get a lot more awkward for Riddle later on tonight. So, and then we have a commercial break, and we come back. We will get the debut of The Miz and John Morrison's new music video. Also, Shane McMahon is promising an expose on Braun Strowman. So then we see Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin. They're walking backstage. They're pissed off. They stop Adam Pearce. They shout at him, and they're like, hey, Lashley would be nothing without them. They want to prove themselves against Lashley. And Shelton says he wants Lashley one-on-one, and Pearce says he needs to consult Lashley, and Cedric tells him to grow a sack. He's like, and if Shelton leaves anything left of Lashley this week, I want him next week. Don't worry, Cedric, there'll be some of Lashley left for you. So then we get Riddle versus Sheamus, and everybody knew, okay, there's no United States Championship feud for WrestleMania. Sheamus is probably going to win here, especially after what we saw last week, and he's going to get his title shot. And that's exactly what it was. Now, this was a good match. And also to make note, Samoa Joe wasn't there. I don't know if he had some, previous obligation, something going on, maybe something he couldn't be there. Maybe it was COVID related. I'm not sure, but no Samoa Joe, but we did have MVP on commentary. So again, this match was really good. The brawling style of Sheamus versus like the MMA, a little bit more, I don't want to say technical, but a little bit more technical style of Matt Riddle. So this was a really good match. At the end of this thing, Sheamus lifts Riddle up. He hits an Alabama slam for another near fall. Then he wants a bro kick, but as he's roaring, Riddle hits a knee and then a roll up for a 2. Riddle then swings for a kick, but Sheamus catches it, kicks him, and then knees him in the head for the win. So Sheamus gets the win after this hard-fought, good opening match. And Sheamus is posing on the ropes. After the match, Riddle knocks him off the floor and tells him that they're not done. And the attack from Riddle was because Sheamus jumped him, attacked him last week, all that stuff. So Sheamus, you see, is kind of just being like a heel, really getting under Riddle's skin, giving him a reason to, beat him up after the match, even though he lost and all this stuff, and then eventually have the match at WrestleMania. Is it a good feud? Absolutely not. Will it be a pretty good match? I think so. Will Riddle win? Hopefully. I mean, Sheamus deserves a title after everything he's done, but I would have liked to see him maybe in the title picture, maybe not at WrestleMania, but, get some kind of better opportunity than he's been given. But I guess U.S. title, mid-card title is better than nothing. So we see a replay of recent going-ons between Shane McMahon, Braun Strowman. Shane's walking backstage with Elias and Jackson Riker. They're stopped for an interview, and Shane says that he can't give anything away, but he says that they're going to find out some enlightening things. So then we go to commercial break, and we come back. Drew's backstage, but it stops AJ Styles and Omos. Drew says there's no way he would turn his back on them because they would never turn down the offer from Lashley. Styles says Bobby is clearly in his head, and they have bigger fish to fry. Styles says that they're more concerned with embarrassing the New Day at WrestleMania, but he's sure their paths will cross sooner than later. Shane McMahon is in the ring with Elias and Jackson Riker. Shane says he wants to address the fact that people thought his running last week meant he wasn't injured, but he's like, clearly you guys don't understand anatomy and adrenaline, all that stuff. It just kicked in. And he pretty much, this was just the awful feud between Braun Strowman, Shane McMahon. He pretty much just said, Strowman's an idiot. I have the proof here. Boom. He throws up the report card. He has D's and D pluses, D minuses, and all his grades. I would have gave him at least like an A in gym to be like, okay, he's a big, muscly meathead. So of course he gets an A in gym, but he, barely passes and fails every other class. Instead, they gave him like a D plus in gym, which was kind of stupid. And, they should have been like, oh, he was a fat kid or something. And, kind of played off that or whatever. But they pretty much just keep saying he's dumb and all this stuff, and he's violent, and, he doesn't work well with others. They're reading his report card from, I think, 5th grade or some bullshit. And then we see a Photoshop picture of Braun wearing a dunce cap. They say he's obviously not bright, but that's not his fault. Maybe he just wants a hug. So Strowman's music hits. He comes out stomping down towards the ring. Shane dances around the ring until Braun gets inside, at which point Shane and Elias leave, and Braun faces Jackson Riker. So here we go. Match nobody cares about at all. So let's go to the end. Braun lifts Riker, stares at Shane before hitting the running power slam for the win. As soon as the match is over, Braun chases Shane until Elias attacks the monster. Elias and Shane then double team Strowman and beat him down until Braun throws them both off and McMahon runs up the ramp. Braun gets on the microphone and says he didn't forget that Shane accepted the challenge to a match. And he said, any stipulation? Well, he's been thinking and he made up his mind. Shane's been ducking and dodging for weeks, but at WrestleMania, he'll have nowhere to run inside a steel cage. So there we go. Shane gonna leap. I mean, if he leaps off the steel cage, he'll win unless he leaps off it, inside the ring onto Braun Strowman. But I'm sure we're gonna see some kind of crazy Shane McMahon jump, all this stuff. That'll be the only highlight of the match for a feud that I really could care less about. So then we see The Miz and John Morrison there in the ring for an episode of The Dirt Sheet. Miz and Morrison welcome us to the show. They show their new song and say how great they are. They say Bad Bunny was nominated for a VMA last year, but he didn't win. And then they said, he did win a Grammy, and Miz is annoyed. And pretty much just because of what happened last week, They thought he made it clear he didn't belong at WWE, but then he attacked him with a guitar. That was in bad taste. Miz says that he plans on exacting revenge for everything, for every shred of disrespect and splinter of wood in his back. And we get the premiere of the newest music video, Hey Hey Hop Hop, which actually watching this music video was a lot more enjoyable than most of the segments on this show. And that's saying something. So then after the video, Damian Priest, Bad Bunny, they come to the ramp. Priest says that they enjoy the music video, and Bunny says it was entertaining. Priest says he's glad Miz found time to screw around because of WrestleMania. Bad Bunny will manhandle him, and then he speaks in Spanish. Priest translates and says that at WrestleMania he's going to make you his bitch, which Juan said, he actually said something about punching him in the face or breaking his face. So there you go. We heard it from the man himself. Priest just had to make it sound a little bit better for TV, I guess. So Miz and Morrison, they hop out of the ring, stand in front of him. Miz says that Bunny, he says that Bunny's afraid of him. So then Priest steps aside, and then Bunny punches him in the face. They get in the ring, and Bunny destroys the dirt sheet set. So, I mean, this match, I think, would be, they probably will make it a tag team match at some point. Maybe whether it's next week or even just from between Raw and WrestleMania, I feel they'll make it a tag match, or at least all four guys will get involved in the match regardless. I just wish there was something better for Priest, but as long as he's with Bad Bunny and they're really pushing him because he's, a big star, big merch seller, good for Priest. I just want to see Priest come out, looking good with this. So then we see Randy Orton backstage, and he says that he had the opportunity to share the ring with some of the all-time greats, Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, blah, blah, blah. But none of them compared to The Fiend. I don't know how he's comparing them. Hopefully not on legend or in-ring status. Well, I would say Fiend's better than Hulk Hogan, but that's about it. So, and then he said The Fiend, he went to new depths to defeat him, and he watched him burn. But in his hatred, he forgot that The Fiend is not a man. He's a demon from hell. He thought Alexa Bliss's premonitions were just games, but now he knows Alexa had his heart in her hands and she could bring him back whenever. And that's fine because now he knows what he's up against. And he knows at WrestleMania he'll be standing across the ring from a sadistic freak. But lucky for him, they're cut from the same cloth. At WrestleMania, he knows exactly what depths he needs to sink to kill the Fiend. Good fiery promo by Randy Orton. It's just a shame this feud is a little bit muddied, especially after the match we saw at Fastlane. Lots of backlash from that, just not even from Randy Orton's wife, from we all make jokes, oh, Alexa straddled them. It was just an awful garbage match. Everybody hated it. A lot of people are kind of souring on the Fiend already, and I don't blame them. I'm still a fan of the creepy supernatural stuff, but it is a little over the top with the Fiend. It's more better when it was toned down, kind of like how the Undertaker and Kane would do it. So then we see Bobby Lashley versus Shelton Benjamin, and he has Cedric Alexander with him. And this was also really good, but again, it was mostly just set up for Lashley to look strong and everything. You knew Shelton wasn't going to get the upset win. It wasn't going to be any kind of crazy storyline like that, Cinderella story. Oh, Shelton's added to the match at WrestleMania, oh, blah, blah, blah. He finally wins a WWE championship, all this great stuff. Shelton's awesome. No, nothing like that. He did look good in the beginning. He had a lot of intensity, even was controlling the match a little bit. But then, of course, Lashley takes over, looks dominant. And at the end, Benjamin, he connects with two huge running knees to the jaw, but Lashley comes right back with a one-handed spine buster. Then Lashley punches Benjamin hard, then hits another huge spine buster. Then he applies the hurt lock, and eventually Shelton passes out. Commentary, of course, they say every time somebody gets in the hurt lock and they just, go limp or whatever, they're like, oh, they tapped. And it's like, no, they just passed out. They tried to say he tapped, but the way I saw it, it looked like he just passed out. So Omos and Styles, or excuse me. Yeah. Then we see Omos and Styles. They stop at the New Day backstage and they're prepping for game night. Again, awful segment. And they want to test Omos and AJ's chemistry. But Styles says that they're supposed to have a match. And, they goad AJ into playing games, and he says he'll beat them, and then he'll whoop Xavier Woods in the ring. So then we see, I'm not running through this, line by line because it's not worth it. They play charade, and, the New Day wins because they guess randomly very specific song or whatever it was. So, of course, obviously they knew what it was. AJ and Omos don't get it. Then they play like Pictionary or something where you're supposed to draw and guess what it is. And, the New Day gets it. And then when AJ and Omos do it, they don't get it. So the New Day wins. They're like, we're the better team and all this shit. Omos says that, this just because you win these stupid games doesn't mean you're going to beat us at WrestleMania. And, he's right. And I hope he is right. And they don't win at WrestleMania. So after we get through this awful, awful segment, we finally get the match, AJ Styles with Omos versus Xavier Woods with Kofi Kingston in his corner. And this was pretty good, back and forth, even match. Of course, AJ sells for Xavier Woods, makes him look good. Xavier Woods isn't a bad wrestler, just a bullshit gimmick, bullshit tag team. And, this happy-go-lucky all the time attitude. It doesn't translate well when you can just tell it's really fake and really annoying. Even MVP was saying it, but then of course, you have the loser other commentary team, the Byron Saxton and Tom Phillips. They're like, oh, well, they're 11-time tag champs, so it must work for something. Yeah, in a predetermined sport, it really must work, huh? So then at the end of this thing, we see AJ, he grabs Woods for the Styles Clash, but Woods breaks away and slams AJ for a 2 count. And then Woods goes to the apron for a springboard, but almost grabs him by the foot and throws him over the ropes, and the referee calls it. So the winner of this thing by disqualification is Xavier Woods. So Kofi, he runs up the steel steps, jumps at Omos, who catches him. Then military presses him over the barricade. In the ring, Styles is beating Woods and then Omos comes in, and then he splashes Woods in the corner. AJ feeds him for a massive spine buster, almost puts the boots on the Woods' chest, and AJ counts to 3 before holding up his hands. So there we see kind of hopefully what's going to be happening at WrestleMania. These two, should hopefully win the Raw tag team titles. I wish there was a better feud for AJ. Seems like they don't have anything at all. So I guess this is better than nothing, gets him on the card. Hopefully they beat the shit out of the New Day, which is something we all want to see. So then when we come back from commercial break, we're in Alexa Bliss's playground, and she's holding a Jack in the Box. She says it's no ordinary toy. Alexa says that they used to be called a devil in the box centuries ago, and even had incarnations engraved on them. And demons could be stored in them, and they were weakened, and that's what happened to him. Randy thought that the Fiend was gone, but he was just in the box. He needed some time. And now he's salivating at the thought of destroying Randy at WrestleMania. Alexa says Randy's mistake was thinking he could play with fire, but now his biggest mistake is thinking he understands what he's up against. She lets us in on a little secret. At WrestleMania, the Legend Killer dies. She then uses the Jack in the Box, and the camera pulls back, and you see the Fiend sitting next to her on the swing. So pretty good promo by Alexa Bliss. All this stuff, of course, the creepy, the gimmicky and stuff. Like I said, it's a little tainted. Everything last week. I just wish the Fiend was more of like the serial killer type, like the Michael Myers, who like he doesn't sell anything. Like you shoot him with a gun and he keeps coming. Just a slow, methodical. Like he almost like can teleport. You're running away and you're like, oh, I think I'm away from him, and you're looking behind you, and then as soon as you look in front of you, he's standing right there. Kind of stuff like that. I like just the whole, oh, we're going to burn him alive. And I mean, I guess it's the same thing, but just the way WWE does it and presents it comes off really hokey and fake. So, I mean, we'll see how the matches at WrestleMania. It can't be worse than any of their other, big pay-per-view matches that these two have had. I say that, but WWE might find a way, but let's hope not. So then we see Drew McIntyre backstage. He storms into the locker room. He asks, who wants to bring it? Who wants to earn a title match at WrestleMania? Nobody looks at him. He gets in everybody's face. He gets in Braun's face. He's like, hey, why are you wasting your time? Why are you being bullshit? And Braun's like, listen, dude, after I kill Shane McMahon, if you do win the championship, then I'll come for you. So I like that. Braun wasn't just like, so it's like, hey, I got my own shit to deal with. Then I'll come for you. He gets in there. He throws Humberto across the locker room. He gets in Gulak's face, everybody. He approaches Riddle. Riddle says that Sheamus is a full meal. He doesn't need any dessert. Garza hits him from behind. He throws him. Or maybe it was Garza. I thought it was Humberto. Maybe it was Garza. He threw him. He looks at Gulak, gets in his face. He headbutts him. Ricochet steps up, and he says he's known him for a long time, and he knows how bad he wants a title shot. And Ricochet agrees. And if Drew really does know him, he knows he doesn't trust Lashley, but he'll be happy to have a fair fight. Drew says he'll see him in the ring. So I was really looking forward to this. I thought I'm like, this would be the best match of the night. Give me 10, 12 minutes of these guys really going at it, and I'll be excited. Of course, we didn't get that. So Then we see Naomi with Lana versus Shayna Baszler with Nia Jax and Reginald. Do you think I care about this? This women's division, besides, I would say, the main events, and even the main events aren't very good. This is the worst booked division in the entire WWE. And that's saying something because look at the tag divisions. Look at the other divisions, the mid-card titles and all this stuff. This is just so badly booked, and it's awful. It's the same people every week, the same outcomes, the same just stupid quick matches, interference. One team's on commentary while the other two are fighting, and then they get involved, and all. It's just awful. Pretty much at the end of this thing, Reginald gets on the apron to distract Naomi. Then all hell breaks loose with Lana, Reginald, Nia Jax, Mandy Rose, Dana Brooke. Shayna Baszler gets distracted. Naomi rolls her off for the win. Literally nobody gives a shit. So, winner Naomi. Asuka's walking backstage, and here we go. When I talk about Matt Riddle and awful segments, this show was only getting worse at this point. Then Asuka's walking backstage with Riddle. He appears. He talks about his scooter. He's like, "Oh, are they popular in Japan?" She says, "Yes." And then Riddle's like, he's like, "I don't really remember what I was supposed to say." He says, like, "I don't know what I'm supposed to say," or "I forget my line." He pretty much, it was just like this was a pre-tape. He's like, "Oh, yeah, so I don't know." And then he's like, "Oh," and he walks away, and you hear him like talking off screen, and Asuka's just looking around like, what is going on? Very bad, very just unprofessional on his part. I'm a fan of his in the ring, but like, really, if he doesn't get in trouble for this, he should, because that was just pathetic. So then we see Adam Pearce. He's in the ring for the contract signing. He introduces Rhea Ripley, and then Asuka, and they're getting ready to sign their contract. And Ripley says that Asuka is only the current champ because, when Pearce introduces her, he introduced her as a Raw Women's Champ. She says, no, she's just the current champ, but that won't be for much longer. Asuka laughs and says Ripley is overconfident. Ripley agrees. She says, "You're right, I am confident. On my first night, I challenged you. And then tonight, I have enough confidence to tell you that I will beat you at WrestleMania." Rhea signs the contract, slides it over to Asuka. She signs it. She kind of yells at Rhea in Japanese. And then, she starts to say Rhea Ripley isn't ready. But, Rhea flips the table, hits Asuka in the face, kind of knocks her out. And I thought, okay, good. Heel turn for Rhea, babyface Asuka at WrestleMania. I'm glad, because they're probably going to put the strap onto Rhea, and that sets it up perfectly for returning, hopefully soon, babyface Becky Lynch to go against Rhea Ripley. That's a feud I want to see. I'm excited for it. And I thought, okay, because they did the slight heel turn, we won't see a bullshit tag match with these two. But no, they had to give us that anyway, because then we hear the most annoying music in all of, professional wrestling, Nia Jax's theme. Her and Shayna come out, and they pretty much say, "Oh, you're bullshit. Why you get the title opportunity? Maybe we need to show you how things work around here." All this stuff. They challenge them to a tag match. Asuka's kind of like still knocked out. Like, oh, she's really not talking or anything. She's just kind of like laying there. Ray is like, "Yeah, we accept the match." Asuka kind of looks at her like, what the hell's going on? So we're going to see this match. And they're the tag champions. So you know how this is going to go next week. We're going to see this match. You're going to have Lana, Naomi, Mandy Rose, Dana Brooke. You're going to have all these other women come out, jump this thing. They're all going to be fighting. Ray is probably going to hit the riptide onto Asuka, as all the other women are brawling, and they'll make it a multi-woman tag match for the titles. And then, of course, Rhea and Asuka will just have their one-on-one match. But really just awful booking. And like I said, this is just the worst division in maybe even in all of wrestling. Might be even worse than AEW's women's division at this point, because we see it so often. At least with AEW's women's division, we only see it maybe once a week. But there's how many segments for each show, and they're all awful. So then we see Ricochet. He's walking backstage with MVP. He's walking backstage. MVP stops him, and he says he's happy to see Ricochet finally step up, make good business decisions. Ricochet says it isn't about Lashley, and he thinks they're both full of it. Tonight, it's about him proving he can beat McIntyre because he doesn't know when he'll get another title shot. So then we see Ricochet versus Drew McIntyre. Again, I was hoping this would have been the best match of the night. Really good. Big fan of both these guys, but this was short. Ricochet got a little bit of offense in. He's set up for the, what is it, 6:30 or whatever his, his crazy splash is. He set him up for that. But, of course, McIntyre rolls out of the way real quick. Boom, hits a Claymore. 1, 2, 3. He wins this thing. The 450. I don't know what I'm saying, 6:30. The 450 splash. he hits that, or he goes for that. Like I said, Drew hits a Claymore and done. So then after the match, Ali, he attacks McIntyre from behind. Ali beats him up against the rope. Referee pulls him apart. He goes for him again. McIntyre throws him from the ring, and he tells him that if he wants it, he can have it. So then when we come back from commercial break, now we see this match, Mustafa Ali no longer wearing Retribution colors, anything like that, no black. So Retribution's officially done, dead, buried, gone forever. Again, another failed, just, awful execution on the gimmick. That you had a good idea with the group, the core, okay, these guys are pissed off. They're not being used correctly. And then you don't use that group correctly. So, what do you get from that? And what do you get from Ali versus Drew McIntyre? Another very quick squash match. This was just to extend the show. Again, if you need bullshit matches like this to extend the show, how about you don't have it be 3 hours long? So McIntyre with a huge belly to belly, then he counters a springboard with a Glasgow kiss, and then McIntyre hits the Claymore for the win. So then after the match, he gets on the microphone and tells Lashley to stop getting others to do his dirty work for him and to come out and grow a pair. So Lashley comes out to the stage. MVP's like, hey, I don't know about this. This isn't a good business decision and everything. And Lashley stands on the ramp. And then he joins McIntyre in the ring. Drew tells him that he can send as many people as he wants after him, but he can't prevent the inevitable. Lashley says he never needed help. He almost ended McIntyre's career at Elimination Chamber, and he should have. But the beating will pale in comparison to what he does at WrestleMania. Lashley tells Drew his time is up, and it is now the almighty era. McIntyre says he knows how big and tough Lashley is, and if he didn't exist, Lashley would be the man. But he does exist, and tonight proved that Lashley is afraid of him. Lashley punches Drew, and they trade shots. Lashley takes Drew down, but McIntyre kicks him back, and then Lashley hits some knees. McIntyre fires back with a headbutt and then knocks him out of the ring. Then King Corbin runs in from behind and beats up McIntyre. So there was the big surprise. Some people said Brock Lesnar. That would have been great. Who was there going to be a big name to accept, the opportunity presented by Lashley? And instead, we got Burger King Corbin. So he comes out and, he beats on McIntyre, hitting him from the back. Suplex, sidewalk slam. McIntyre forces Corbin backwards into the corner, hits a belly to belly. He looks for the Claymore, but Corbin counters it into a deep six. That was a legit spot. Every time Corbin hits the deep six like that, I will say really good. Lashley runs in, he picks the bones, applies the hurt lock on Drew, and Lashley holds Drew in the move until he passes out. Then he applies it again. McIntyre's out, and Lashley lifts up his title and screams in Drew's face as Corbin watches on. McIntyre slowly starts to crawl away, but Lashley lifts him and applies the hurt lock again till Drew's out completely, and then he poses with the WWE Championship as the show goes off the air. So there was Monday Night Raw. And then the intensity between Drew and Lashley is legit, but you had to job out Ricochet, you had to job out Ali, and then the big surprise, new member. I don't be surprised if he gets moved to Raw, because he's doing absolutely nothing on SmackDown, and he'll be the new member of the Hurt Business, Baron Corbin. Anybody excited for that? No, not really. Now, I know there's history and they're playing off that, the three of them were like a group together for a little bit, but they were all like mid-card bullshit heels when it was Lashley, McIntyre, and Corbin. So, you're going to call back to that. That's like Ziggler calling back to in McIntyre. It's like, okay, yeah, that's when I was bullshit. Now I'm main event. I don't care about the, the bullshit stuff from the past. So we'll see where they go with this. I'm sure we'll see a match with Drew and Corbin next week. Drew will kick Corbin's head off. Lashley will come out, choke him out. They'll have a big brawl, something like that. So, like I said, this build for WrestleMania really doesn't feel special. Raw tag team titles is, they're playing game shows, the women's division, everything's intertwined in the most bullshit manner possible. And, just every other feud, Bad Bunny, Miz, Sheamus, Riddle doesn't even know his lines. It's like, it's just not good. Not good at all. But guys, what is good is you and all your support that you give us. So thank you for watching this review. And, make sure you follow us also on all the social medias. Rope Break on Facebook, the OG Rope Break on Twitter, Original Rope Break on Instagram, and, of course, right here on YouTube, the home of the #1 podcast in the YouTube wrestling community, the Original Rope Break. So I've been your host, the best that there is, Jean-Paul Leek, and we will see you next time with NXT. The